Well, welcome to the New Health Conversation podcast. My name is Peter Greenlaw. I started the New Health Conversation podcast. Today, what we're going to discuss is this topic: why diets are failing us, because they are, unless you think it's good that 80% of America are overweight and 50% are obese. We really only are going to bring you medical proof. We're not bringing you opinions. Opinions shouldn't matter to you. They shouldn't matter to anybody. This podcast is designed to give you a new option. Because now there are, I'm holding them in my hand, well, you probably can't see them, okay, 7 new peer-reviewed human trial studies that have come out within the last year that absolutely, according to the researchers who've been looking at diets for 38 years, will completely obsolete every diet approach that they've ever studied in 38 years, and they've looked at everything. So again, welcome to the New Health Conversation. We're discussing, or going to be discussing in this podcast, not an infomercial, why diets are failing us. And the reason that we're doing this is we want to give you an option. Right now, your only option, for the most part, unless someone can tell me something different, is the only way to lose weight is to lower calories. Well, you're going to find out today medical proof that that is one of the most unhealthy things you could ever do. Look, if anybody thinks we have this under control, we don't. You can't have 80% of America overweight and 50% are obese and think somehow that diets are working. So over and over again, the point is, why are diets failing us? You're going to learn all that today, but you're also going to learn the great news in these 7 new peer-reviewed human trial studies where men and women who were not even allowed to exercise lost as much weight in 7 days as 8 weeks of any traditional diet. They lost as much weight in a month, I know it sounds crazy, as a year on any diet. Instead of losing any water, they didn't. They also, instead of losing lean muscle mass, they actually gained 6 to 9% lean muscle mass. No one's ever seen anything like this. In 8 weeks, they shrank their visceral fat by 33%. So the point is that you have an incredible new opportunity today, right now, over the course of this podcast, where we're going to show you only medical evidence. There are no opinions. Opinions shouldn't matter to you. Are you really, really serious about losing weight? Do you really want a real, for the first time, not celebrity endorsement, not an advertising campaign, but real medical proof that you could absolutely change your life? As a matter of fact, the people in the studies even said, just give us 4 days. Because most of them said that they were shocked that they lost as much weight actually in 4 days as in a month of any diet they'd been on. And they clearly in 7 days lost as much weight as they'd lost in 8 weeks on any other diet out there. So this is really an incredible opportunity to face one of the biggest pandemics. I mean, there are medical experts that think this is the greatest threat to mankind, and that is obesity. It's really, really sad. You know, you look at, you go out, I'm actually on vacation, believe it or not, I'm at the beach, even though the mountains are in my background, and to just see even kids, 10, 12-year-olds, this thing is so out of control. And what do we keep doing? We keep, why diets are failing us, and yet we keep counting calories. We listen to these, influencers. There's lots of them, and I don't fault them. They're telling you what they know. But what they know has now been completely obsoleted. It's completely been blown away by these 7 new peer-reviewed human trial studies. I mean, think about it. If you're in a position where you could safely lose as much weight in a week as in 8 weeks, how much would that incentivize you to keep going? Some other really highlights from these new studies, and that is, number one, the people in the studies, and we'll explain why that is, they actually consume more calories than anybody in the other diets, and yet they lost weight 12 times faster than any other diet. And the other thing that was amazing is they saw these amazing medical improvements. Blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, triglycerides, and even inflammation went down dramatically just in 30 days. Hunger went down 41% in 30 days. But the other thing that's happening is now the studies, because a peer-reviewed study takes a long time, so they were started in some cases more than a couple, 3, 4 years ago. Those people have maintained the weight they've lost. I can speak to that. I lost 40 pounds 21 years ago. I've kept it off for 21 years. So again, this is the New Health Conversation podcast. We're going to discuss this topic today, why diets are failing us. But we're going to give you a new alternative that is not a diet. It's not about counting calories. It has nothing to do with exercise. It's I know I know already you think you're skeptical. This guy's crazy. No, I'm a nutritional researcher for 21 years. I've written 4 best-selling books, all with medical doctors. I've done 20 shows on PBS. I've done over 1,500 lectures all over the world. And for 20 years, that meant zero in the medical world. It really did. We had amazing before and after pictures. We had anecdotal evidence, but we didn't have medical evidence until now. And I can honestly tell you, since it's now been about 13 or 14 months that these studies really became available, now medical doctors left and right are saying, wow, this is the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I was on the phone late last night with actually a physician's assistant. And for those who don't know, that's one level below a medical doctor. And she was saying, even herself, she said the number of people that are coming in that are just desperate. She said, you know, we're overwhelmed. We don't know what to do. It's like, the thing is completely out of control. So for all of you, you could be in a position to really, really change your lives if in fact that's what you want to do. Or you can hang on to the dogma about diets that somehow lowering calories is the only way to lose weight. Look at all the influences, and I say with all due respect, I'm not disparaging any of them. They're telling you what they know. They're telling you what they were taught. They're telling you the old philosophy that used to be what was preeminent. But you've got to understand, this thing is accelerating. To give you an idea, in 2018, 42% of the American population estimated to be obese. This year it's 50%. That's 6 years later. That's a 24% increase in just 6 years. And it's everywhere. It's young and old, and you know, and people complain about the fact. They say, "Look, I'm not even eat." This PA last night was saying, "Look, I don't even eat that much. I'm trying everything. I can't lose weight no matter what I do." Well, again, you're going to learn all of that today. So I'm going to get started in about a minute, and you all are more than welcome to hopefully stay on the podcast and really learn. Again, this is the new health conversation. This is what we're going to be discussing, why diets are failing us, and the R2M protocol, which is this medical. After 38 years, the researchers feel comfortable. They've found the silver bullet for weight loss, and they're going to show. We're going to show you exactly what they did, how they did it, you know, etc. It's up to you. But at any point, you can see it there. They put it up. Thank you very much for doing that. The new health conversation. It's a website. You can go there for free. We have all the medical evidence, both on traditional diets and on this new protocol. And what I'll promise you, if you go to that website, we will not contact you. We don't do that. We don't need to do it, etc. But if you like what you see, if you scroll down on the first page to the bottom, it says free consultation. We literally do a free consultation with you. Not a bait and switch, not somebody an 800 number. It's someone who's actually done this new protocol, and they're there to assist you. Because honestly, we don't know if you want to gain weight, do you want to lose weight? I mean, do you have any medical issues? You know, et cetera, et cetera. Like the lady last night had some medical issues that I was completely unaware of. So how would we know to best advise you? Although we're not treating, curing, diagnosing, or preventing any diseases. Of course, we're not doing that. But the studies were so compelling, and it's irrefutable evidence. Okay, it's not some little gimmick or some little trick. All right. So let's get started. Let's talk about first the evidence about counting calories. This is a report. It's called "Why You Shouldn't Count Calories." Truth is, calorie counting is a terrible approach for weight loss. While counting calories and restricting calories can help you lose weight in the short term, the approach has never been proven to keep weight off long term. What's even worse is 2/3 of people who try to count or restrict their calories will gain back more weight than they lost. That's what you're facing. Now let's go to Harvard Medical School. Article, Stop Counting Calories. Here's what she said. The idea of a calorie in and a calorie out when it comes to weight loss is not only antiquated, it's just wrong, says Fatima Stanford, an obesity specialist at Harvard Medical School. Drop the calories notion, says Stanford. It's time to take a different approach, putting the emphasis on what's in the calorie, not how many calories you're consuming. This is Harvard Medical School. It's not my opinion. It's not our opinion. I mean, this is really what's going on. I mean, you can bury your head in the sand. You can pretend it's not happening, but it is happening. And the thing is, it's getting worse and worse and worse every single day. Why in the world do we continue diets? They are failing us. It's not up for debate. And no matter what diet approach you want to take, We're going to show you some of the big evidence and contrast it. Well, let me just give you a preview. In the new studies, that's exactly 30 days. She lost 21.2 pounds, 38.75 inches in 30 days. Look at the difference in her stomach. I mean, it's not photoshopped. I promise you it's not photoshopped. And then this lady from October 3rd to November 9th, and it's the same year, by the way, you look, what happened? There we go. Sorry, I don't know why that's doing that. Okay, there we go. You can see right there the difference in her body. It looks like it's photoshopped. I know because of the way the camera's picking this up, but it's unbelievable what we're seeing, what's happening with people. It's completely crazy that it's so good that you don't have to worry about loose skin. You don't have to worry about losing lean muscle mass. So let's take a look at one of the biggest diets now, the time-restricted eating, which you've heard so much about, where people come on don't eat for 16 hours, eat for 8. This is the Journal of the American Medical Association, a huge study done on time-restricted eating. What they said was the new research found that overweight adults who were assigned to routinely fast for 16 hours daily gained almost no benefit from it. And over the course of 3 months, they lost between 2 and 3.5 pounds, but most of the weight they shed was not body fat, but lean muscle mass. There's your Achilles heel. There's the biggest reason why diets don't work in the long run. Because there's a number of problems with, first of all, even counting calories. The human body doesn't know what a calorie is. The human body doesn't count calories. Why are you counting calories? Because someone told you to, all right? Well, what happens when you lower calories, what else are you lowering? Nutrition. Well, since the body doesn't care about calories, doesn't run on calories, I mean, all a calorie is a measurement. It's the amount of heat it takes to raise a gram of water 1 degree Celsius. Are any of these people even telling you things like that? This calorie counting is out the window. It's nonsense, right? They proved in that study, and other studies I'm going to show you, that up to 40% of what you're losing in any diet, you're fooling yourself, is your lean muscle. Two incredibly unhealthy things happen when you lose lean muscle. Number one, the body automatically slows down your metabolism. And when you slow down your why does it slow down? Because what your body's doing to substitute for lack of nutrition, it goes and looks for it, it finds it in your muscles. It's breaking your muscles down, converting them into carbohydrates, and then the body slows down your metabolism. And then the other thing that happens, it also it impacts your immune system. It's like, no kidding. Muscle mass is so important to us. Every one of these diets, that's what's going on. Every one. Now let's look at a big study in the New England Journal of Medicine. This one's 12 months, where they took people who, in a year, they put half of them on lowering calories, and the other half they put on time-restricted eating. Well, they found at the end of 12 months, according to this study in the New England Journal of Medicine, probably the number 2 journal in the world, that after 8 months, after 12 months, on lowering calories, people had lost 16 pounds, and by doing time-restricted eating, they only lost 12.6 pounds. I mean, maybe you think that's okay. In our world, it's ridiculous. But also, they said both the time-restricted eating and daily caloric restriction diets led to the loss of lean muscle mass. This is a 12-month study, okay? I mean, I have more studies proving it. That whatever approach, this is what we're talking about. Why diets are failing us, because they are. It's not up for debate. Now, here's the thing that fools you. You will lose weight on any diet. There's no doubt about it. But it's the wrong kind of weight. It's always lean muscle mass. And when you lose lean muscle mass, you do 2 really bad things to yourself. Because when you slow down your metabolism, you can't burn as many calories. You come off that diet, that's why you gain everything back. How many of you have gone through that experience? Again, for the people just coming on, we're talking about why diets are failing us. This is a podcast. It's not an infomercial. And we're showing you only medical evidence of why diets are failing us, because they are. You can't possibly think with 80% of America overweight and 50% of those people are obese that somehow this is working. It's fantasy land. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. I said earlier that in 2018, about 42% of the American population, it was estimated, that are obese. 6 years later, it's 50%. That's a 24% increase, essentially in 6 years. I mean, do you see what's going on? I know you go into these diets with great hope and great, you hear the people, encouraging you. Well, it's, make your list, and it's mental attitude, and it's drink plenty of water and whatever. Well, those things aren't bad, but what's the outcome? The outcome is that people are torturing themselves to lose weight that's unbelievably unhealthy. I mean, they're taking 8 weeks to lose weight that we now know based on these peer-reviewed human, 7 of them, that people lost the same amount of weight in a week. But instead of losing lean muscle mass, people in these new studies, they gained 6 to 9% lean muscle mass and dropped visceral fat by 33% and lowered blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, triglycerides, all in 30 days. I mean, what I find so ironic is that we just keep trying to, sort of redefine things and say that, somehow we just have surrendered to the fact that, let's just accept being overweight. Now, I can address this. My own mother was morbidly obese my whole life. I never knew her thin. I never knew her healthy, and I loved her. She was awesome. And 23 years ago, she called me up one day and she said, Peter, I have one wish in my life. I said, Mom, what would that be? She said, I would give anything if I could just spend 24 hours thin. I said, wow, Mom, that's cool. Well, not really cool. 6 months later, massive heart attack and stroke. I saw my mom do every diet that there was, from Jenny Craig to Weight Watchers to Nutrisystem to fasting to OptiFast to the grapefruit diet to the cabbage soup diet, over and over and over again. And she'd lose 20 pounds and she'd gain 25 pounds back. I'd see her lose 25, she'd gain 30 back. I believe she dieted herself to death, literally. And so that was one of the main motivators why I became a researcher for the last, 21 years. And I have, my name is Peter Greenlaw. For the new people coming on, I'm a nutritional researcher for 21 years. I'm not an opinion maker. I'm not an influencer. Well, hopefully I will be ultimately as more and more people find out about this. Because how much longer do we just continue reinforcing the definition of insanity? Go to Barnes & Noble. You wait till you see how many diets there are there. But at the end of the day, is there any one of them that's not some form of lowering calories? I've never seen it. Maybe you can put it in the chat if you've seen a diet that's not some form of lowering calories. Look, the biggest thing I know that we were challenged with is skepticism, because you've heard these stories before, but the difference this time is now we have medical proof. Seven new peer-reviewed studies where men and women were not allowed to exercise on purpose by the researchers. They even wore the equivalent of a Fitbit to prove they weren't exercising. And yet, with no exercise, they lost as much weight in 7 days as 8 weeks of any diet. They lost no water weight, and they ended up gaining 6 to 9% lean muscle. No one's ever seen anything like this before, ever. Now, your skepticism is probably well-founded if I was just giving you an opinion. If you want opinions, you have plenty of them on TikTok and on all the social media platforms. But have you ever seen any of them show you one shred of medical evidence for what they're saying? I mean, aren't you at least curious? And you can go. The website's right there for you, the New Health Conversation. You can see all the medical proof. There's an interview with the #1 nutritional researcher in the world who walks you through what they found in the studies and why they said they'll never recommend any form of traditional diet counting calories to their patients ever again. These are the top people in the world, not Peter Greenlaw. I don't want you to believe me. Actually, to be honest, I'm the researcher of the researchers. Now, I've written 4 best-selling books with medical doctors. I've worked with some of the top geneticists, molecular biologists in the entire world. And yet, even with that, for 20 years, I had no credibility in the medical world. But again, for some reason, now we have social media, and all of a sudden, just because someone's on social media and they're giving you an opinion, I mean, They actually how did they control for physical activity? They actually gave them the equivalent of a Fitbit to measure their caloric output, and they were coming in every single week, obviously, to get updated, and they were doing blood, stool, urine, fat analysis. Okay, and he said, Well, all I can tell you is, Wolf Walker, then again, show me any other diet program with one peer-reviewed human trial study. And you have to understand, Wolf, these are in the biggest journals. Obesity is probably the number 2 or 3 journal in the world. One more recently, just published in the last 4 weeks, in Nature Communications, the number 1 journal in the entire world. So it matters which journals you're in. So that's an opinion you have. That's great. But never before has anyone seen results like this, okay? Look, all I can tell you is I lost 40 pounds 21 years ago. I've kept it off for 21 years, and this really basically saved my life. Okay, I had a cholesterol of 400, my triglycerides were in the 300s, I was 40 pounds overweight and had a heart attack risk of 85% within 18 months. In 7 weeks, I lost 40 pounds. My cholesterol went from 400 to 120, my triglycerides from 300 to 40, and here I am today alive and believe because of it. I mean, you can believe whatever you want to believe, okay? All I'm saying to you is these researchers are considered the top nutritional researchers in the entire world, okay? They've been looking at every diet for 38 years. They're abandoning traditional diets now. They'll never do it again. And here's the point. You can go to the website, The New Health Conversation. You'll see it up there. Yes, the links to the studies are on the website, The New Health Conversation. You're more than welcome to go there. But not only the new studies, but also the studies on the traditional diets, like New England Journal of Medicine, like the Journal of the American Medical Association. Again, we want to be fair. We just want to present the evidence. We're not trying to convince anybody, right? We want you to convince yourself. If you take the time to go to that website, you'll see the proof. But watch the interview with the number 1 nutritional researcher in the world. They don't sell anything. They have no agenda. They're not like selling anything that they used in the medical trials, right? Well, not medical trials. They're peer-reviewed human trials. And if you know much about it, you know that with a peer-reviewed human trial study, the main thing that they do in peer review is try and discredit what you're trying to prove. That's why no drug would ever get approved without a peer-reviewed human trial study. Oh, thank you very much. Yes, it's 100% not. As a matter of fact, the other thing that's amazing, Wolf, the people, particularly in the, in all the studies, what they had done, their caloric intake, the amount of calories they were consuming was more than any of the diets that they were put up against. Let me show you one more. So this is the study that was done on the Mediterranean diet, voted number 1 7 years in a row by U.S. News and World Report. In the after 8 months on the again, they were comparing it to the studies over here, and the people in the studies consume more calories than the people on the Mediterranean diet. Well, look, all I'm telling you is it's the number 1 diet 7 years in a row. So they wanted to go up against the best. Well, it was a joke. On the Mediterranean diet, after 8 months, people lost 10.2 pounds, and almost 40% of what they lost was their lean muscle mass. These people, they lost 16 pounds in 30 days with no water weight loss, with a gain of 6 to 9% lean muscle mass. This has never been seen before. But also blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, triglycerides, all came down dramatically in 30 days. Inflammation. And if you know much about inflammation, it's measured by what's called C-reactive protein and interleukin-1 in a test called T-bars. It came down 25% in 30 days. And there were medical doctors that had patients that were going through this, diabetics and people on high blood pressure. You know, that wasn't the job of the researchers, but the people that were in the studies had their own doctors. They couldn't believe it. In the diabetics case, Wolf, you'll probably be interested in this, that as you probably know, when you have a diabetic, they give a medication, either metformin or glucophage, to drive down the blood sugar. But what happens, as with all drugs, is a side effect. Insulin goes up, and when insulin goes up, what happens? We store fat. That's why diabetics struggle so much with losing weight. Well, in the studies, their blood sugar in 30 days came down 10 points, not 10% in 30 days, but insulin came down 41%. That's never been seen before. This is not a diet. It has nothing to do with diets. First and foremost, as a matter of fact, the main reason they did it, and maybe you're aware of this and maybe you're not, this is a new medical syndrome called the TDOS syndrome. It stands for toxicity driven by nutritional deficiency, overweight, and stress. It's a registered trademark, U.S. Patent Office, not a copyright, okay? It's now considered a new medical condition or syndrome, just like metabolic syndrome or syndrome X, okay? What does it mean? It means that we're storing chemicals in our fat cells, specifically our visceral fat. So you have your outer layer of fat that's called subcutaneous or adipose, but the underlying fat, the visceral fat, that's the body's last line of defense. And they absolutely stored the chemicals in the visceral fat. So in the study, what were they doing? They looked at blood, stool, urine, and fat analysis and proved that this was triggering the natural detox mechanism that's built into all of us that actually occurs every night when we go to sleep. And they proved this was removing PCBs, pesticides and herbicides from the body, and the visceral fat with no exercise, no sit-ups, no crunches, nothing, shrank by 33% in 8 weeks. As evidenced by the fact, and just so you know that I wasn't photoshopping, let me just find them here. I'll get back to it in a moment. So the point is, this was doing so much more than just having people, fit in their skinny jeans. So yeah, let me show you this. This is more important, I guess. This is 30 days. Whoops, sorry. This is 30 days. You can see that young woman there, name's Kristen. She lost 21.2 pounds, 38.75 inches. In 30 days, look at the difference in her stomach. That's not photoshopped. That's the visceral fat shrinking, okay? But it's not just a photo op, because in the medical studies, they had measured the visceral fat and saw that it shrank by 33%. And then this one is really pretty amazing. This is exactly 5 weeks, and you can see, now you can see October 3rd, you can see that, and November 9th, by the way, the same year. Look at the difference in her body from her neck to her ankles. Show me any diet that's ever done, and that's 30 days. I'm sorry, that's 5 weeks. I apologize, 5 weeks, not, but still, look at that. That's unbelievable. Who wouldn't be happy with that in 5 weeks with no exercise, right? Now, there's more evidence, okay? So let's talk for a moment about the fact that TDOS syndrome. So what we now know is we're storing the chemicals inside of our fat cells. Well, this is a really good book. It's called The New American Diet. It was written by Stephen Prynne, editor-at-large at Men's Health, okay? Again, what are they saying about these chemicals being stored in our body? Well, number one, they have a name. They're called obesogens. How many of you knew that or even heard the term before today? Listen to what they're saying about obesogens, which is what they call the chemicals we're storing in our fat cells. Obesogens are altering the function of our genes and essentially reprogram us to gain weight. What are you doing about that, everyone? Did you ever know what an obesogen was? Do you know this is a major contributing factor to this? Let's call it what it is. It's a pandemic. If you've got 80% of America overweight and 50% are now obese and 50% are pre-diabetic in the United States, what do you think's going on? That's why this is so important. These new studies, and that's what the researchers set out to do, was could they trigger or support the detox mechanism in all of our bodies, and they were able to do it. No, okay, Wolf, let me explain something to you. They did not allow anybody to exercise. That was the point. And I'll explain to you, why did they gain lean muscle mass? Sounds like you're very knowledgeable, okay? Well, obviously, one of the most important elements to a human being are the 20 amino acids. 9 are essential. You have to get them from your diet, okay? And one of those amino acids, called leucine, is responsible for primarily making lean muscle in our body. It's called, a technical term is protein synthesis, but it just simply means the body uses the leucine. That's why you'll see bodybuilders consume 1 to 2 grams of protein for every pound they weigh. What they don't understand, or we didn't understand until about 9 years or 10 years ago in Europe, they developed a new measurement. It's called net nitrogen utilization. What they did, when you ingest a protein in a plant or an animal, you get all 20 amino acids, including the 9 essential and the 11 other ones. But that means 0 to the human body. The only thing that matters to the human body is what percentage, 0 to 100, are absorbed. That's what net nitrogen utilization. Now, they measured blood, stool, urine, and fat analysis to prove this, okay? So let's look at a vegan protein, something like a pea protein, which they measured the absorption of, and I'm not trying to make vegans mad, I'm just giving you the real numbers. The absorption of the 20 amino acids, because any protein has all 20, including a vegetable or an animal protein, was only 10%. 90% of what they were consuming were actually toxins that the body had to get rid of. They're called nitrogen catabolites. They're things like urea, creatine, ammonia, and glucose. Now let's look at all meats. All meats were 30%. Didn't matter if it was steak, chicken, liver, etc. So 70% of, a chicken or liver or swordfish or whatever is toxic waste the kidneys have to get rid of. God forbid you ever had a friend who was in kidney dialysis. They don't have any protein at all, okay? Now, so in the studies, one of the things they found was a source where the absorption of the amino acids, the net nitrogen utilization, was 91%. That's why they built lean muscle with no physical activity allowed. No lifting weights, no strength training, no bands, no running, no nothing, okay? They had to isolate exercise because otherwise it would have been, well, it was diet and exercise that did this. Now, they're not against exercise, let's be clear. And I have athletes that are having just phenomenal results, needless to say. Because the problem is with, let's say, a bodybuilder, in order to get enough by volume of leucine, they're consuming these huge amounts of protein, up to 2 grams for every pound they weigh. I had a bodybuilder last week. He weighed 270 pounds. He was ingesting 540 grams of protein. It's like, oh my gosh, you don't understand. But just think about it. So what they were able to do was the efficiency of the body reacting to the absorption. And this is across the board, okay? Actually, I'll get into exactly what they did. But Wolf, I wanted to answer your question more specifically. Hopefully that helps. But that's why they built lean muscle with no exercise. That's why it's so amazing. And any of you, I hope you would share this podcast, this knowledge. Where else are you going to find it? Where else are you going to hear it? And I will tell all of you, I'm the researcher of the researchers. It's not my research, but I'm giving a voice to the research so that you can use it or not. At any point, you can go to our website. You see it up there, the New Health Conversation. You can see there are before and afters there I couldn't even show you. TikTok would ban me. You think those pictures were amazing. Wait till you see what's on the website. There are people that lost like nearly 100 pounds. No loose skin. What? Yeah, because just like I said, I invite you to go there and take a look for yourself. Wolf, what part of the peer-reviewed human trial studies are you not understanding? Go and research obesogens, Obesogens. All I was saying to you is they were confirming the research that has been done. I'm not saying the New American Diet, they weren't the source, okay? But we know that everybody on this call, including you, has between 1,000 and 1,500 chemicals embedded in your visceral fat. You can ignore it at your own peril, okay? I did the research, but again, okay, well, the U.S. Patent Office gave me a registered trademark for the TDOS syndrome. Trust me, that's a big deal. That means something, okay? It's right up there with metabolic syndrome and syndrome X, etc. The study, you can see it there, MTX. Go to the New Health Conversation. You will see the actual studies there. But more importantly, there's an interview with the #1 nutritional researcher in the world for 38 years. I don't want you to believe me, but you sure as heck ought to at least listen to what he's saying, and you can see the evidence. Look, I know the biggest thing we're fighting now is skepticism. That's okay. Everybody has opinions. That's great. Because again, if you're trying to compare this to anything that's ever come before this, it's not like anything that's ever come before this, okay? And I'm going to explain to all of you, why did it work? Why was it so dramatic? Why do we continue to see the drama over and over again with people changing their lives? Hey, the main reason to do this is not to lose weight. It's to assist your own body in removing the chemicals we're storing inside of us. Oh, and by the way, people lost weight. Their blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, triglycerides, inflammation all came down in a month. Inflammation coming down 25% in a month. No one's ever seen anything like that before. And it was measured by T-bars, which is the way you measure inflammation to check what's called interleukin-1 and C-reactive protein. These are medical facts. They're not made up. When you get published in one of these big journals that's been scrutinized by the top researchers in the world, it's what's called irrefutable evidence. I mean, there's no point in arguing with me. I'm just telling you that's what's regarded in the scientific community, and I can address it because, heck, I've written 4 best-selling books. I'd been interviewing the 4 biggest daytime shows in America. I did 20 shows on PBS, 1,500 lectures all over the world. They even flew me to China. It didn't mean a darn thing for 20 years because we had no peer-reviewed human trial studies. What's the eating plan? Okay, Don, give me 1 more minute. I promise I'm going to address that. I want to just show you one more really big piece of evidence here on basically, what the evidence is around. What did I do with it? Okay, I'll find it. Just give me a second here, everybody. Oh, here it is. Okay, someone is asking about meta-analysis. This is a meta-analysis. This was the Journal of the American Medical Association. 48 different studies, 7,286 people. And it said, comparison of weight loss among named, meaning they named diet programs. They listed paleo, keto, Mediterranean, time-restricted eating, fasting, the Cornish diet, the lose weight for your blood type, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, Nutrisystem, I mean, a whole host of more. I'm not even mentioning them all. This was a 12-month study. So the first thing was they looked at which diet produced the most amount of weight loss versus the one that produced the least amount of weight loss. And what they found in a year's time, the only difference in weight was about 10 ounces in 12 months. And in a year's time, they lost 16 pounds, with about 40% of it being lean muscle mass. But this is 48 different studies on pretty much all the major diets. This is what's really going on, despite what the celebrity endorsements and these influences, and with all due respect, medical doctors, chiropractors, dietitians, nutritionists, fitness trainers, workout people. I've never seen one of them hold up one shred. I've never seen a peer-reviewed human trial study shown by any of them. I mean, I don't know, maybe they have them, but I sure as heck haven't seen them. But listen, when you got one of the top obesity experts in the world from Harvard, right here in this article, stop counting calories. The idea of a calorie in and a calorie out when it comes to weight loss is not only antiquated, it's just wrong, says Fatima Stanford, obesity specialist at Harvard Medical School. Drop the calories notion, said Stanford. It's time to take a different approach, putting the emphasis on what's in the calorie, not how many calories you're consuming. The experts agree, they're wrong. They were wrong. The problem with lowering calories is if you ignore what's in the calorie, because that's the only thing the body works on. It only works on nutrition. It doesn't work on calories. It doesn't count calories. It doesn't know what a calorie is. Calorie is just a measurement. It's the amount of heat it takes to raise a gram of water 1 degree Celsius. Okay, so what's the eating plan? Don, it's way beyond an eating plan, okay? Let me explain to you what did they do, but more importantly, why did they do it? In the 38 years of research, looking at pretty much every diet out there, they came to several conclusions. Number one, people lost weight no matter what the diet was. That was not up for debate. But the weight they were losing, the great majority of the weight they were losing in every case was lean muscle mass. The other outcome was it was almost 100% of the people ended up weighing at least as much as they did. Once they stopped the diet, they gained all the weight back. And many of them gained even more weight back, okay? That was number one. So they said, wait a minute, what's going on? In all the cases, no matter what the diet was, at the end of the day, they realized people were consuming less calories, which meant now they were consuming less nutrition. So the first thing they had to solve was, okay, if we're going to put people on this new protocol, we need to figure out a different feeding source, okay? So what they did, they made a recommended food list of foods from proteins, fats, carbs, etc. But they limited food from organic sources or the grocery stores in this country to about 40% of the food that people consumed in these peer-reviewed human trial studies. But then what they did, they had been researching, and they found sources of food that came from all over the world. They literally came from Russia, they came from Mongolia, Manchuria, China, they came from Nepal and the Himalayas, South America, New Zealand. There were 5 food groups. And what was different about these food groups had massive amounts of nutrition regardless of the calories. So now they had 40% of the food came from the grocery store with a list, and the other 60% came from all over the world. Now, what's one of the things you're the most deficient in, whether you know it or not, or what are called trace ionic minerals? We're not talking about iron and calcium, magnesium. We're talking about 70 things like gold and silver and zinc and beryllium and boron and molybdenum, okay? There's 70 that we need according to the experts. In the best organic you can buy right now, you get 15 to 20 minerals. So right away, you're in a tremendous deficit on minerals alone. Now, the other thing, as I had mentioned to you before, One of the things that they also found was this source that gave people 91% of all 20 amino acids, but in particular leucine, and leucine is responsible to make muscle in the body. If you remember, I talked about the fact that even all animal proteins, steak, chicken, liver, fish, whatever, they're about 30% absorption. So in the studies, they were able, well, also think about it, the people ultimately with way less calories needed to get the amino acids, it was basically 3 to 1. So people could consume a third of the protein they would have had to consume. See, in the previous test, let me explain something. They did this new protocol, it was called protein pacing. They'd already done that for several years, but they never saw results like this. Because the key was that this source of 91% absorption allowed the people to consume way less, even from a calorie standpoint of view, but also from a waste standpoint of view, that the body didn't have to get rid of what wasn't converted into amino acids, okay? So the other thing that they did, because they were concentrating so much on nutrition, they were able to create what's called, is this with aminos? Dawn, this is the amino acid absorption was 91%, 91%. And the other part was what's called intermittent nutritional fasting, not time restricted eating. On those days, they consumed no food from the grocery store. They consumed just 4 of these foods from around the world. And again, what happened was that unexpectedly, they did blood, stool, urine, and fat analysis, proving that this was allowing our own body to pull out the herbicides, the pesticides, things like PCBs. Not up for debate. That's what they found. And then all of a sudden, people were losing weight really like 12 times faster than any diet. And as I mentioned before, because of the high levels of leucine, they actually made 6 to 9%, increased 6 to 9% lean muscle mass, shrank visceral fat by 33%, something else. In the studies, the people have maintained the weight loss now for, I think it's been almost a couple of years. That doesn't happen with other diets, okay? The sad part is we get hoodwinked. We get convinced that, oh, I lost weight on a diet, but we don't talk about, well, how about a year from now? How about 6 months from now? What was the outcome, right? So, you're in a position now. You don't have to listen to us. You can go. There's plenty of people on TikTok, Facebook, whatever, that'll give you opinions. I think it's time to say, wait a minute. Maybe we need to slow our roll down here a little bit and take a look really at science. What's really going on? What's really going on is that, again, to repeat, you have 80% of America overweight, you have 50% obese, you have 50% that are pre-diabetic. But lest you think it's just a problem here in the United States, this is a new study that was published just 2 months ago, or no, let's see, March would be 3. 4 months ago in The Lancet. This is the #1 medical journal in the world. Well, this study said now more than 1 billion people worldwide are clinically obese, making obesity the leading form of malnutrition worldwide. Let me repeat that. We got 1 billion people clinically obese, making obesity the leading form of malnutrition worldwide. They go on to say most people are not aware that obesity and being underweight are both forms of malnutrition, because in both cases the people are not getting the right amounts of vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and the types of calories that are required to be healthy. It's not my opinion. So what do you think? What did the researchers do? They went and found the sources for the vitamins, minerals, nutrients, and the types of calories. These are not supplements. It's not supplements. You're not taking a pill. There's no pills, okay? And again, if you... MTX, I'm not exactly sure about that, but I know that, for example, bodybuilders, they'll take 1 gram to 2 grams of protein, which is, depending on the source, what the level of absorption is, because the only thing you really should care about is what's the absorption. So these people were consuming, just to give you an idea, they were doing about, of the source with the 91%, they were doing about 72 grams of that times 91%. That would give them almost 60 grams of, the equivalent. What the body does with leucine, it makes lean muscle, okay? but it also makes human proteins. But so the other protein sources over the course of the day were probably another maybe 60 grams of protein, of which it was a 30% absorption. So I'm not sure. I guess I could figure that out if I had more time, the ratios. But just to give you an idea, they were able to consume a third less protein over the course of a day that they had done previously. Because protein pacing, which is one of the fundamental new principles of how to consume food, nothing to do with time-restricted eating. That's nonsense, okay? Or, only eat when you're hungry kind of thing, right? So that was very important because it wasn't just like how much protein, it was when you had it. It was protein, it was the sequence of when you had. It wasn't just protein. Also, they were having vegetables and other things, mixed in. But there was a very specific menu, or let's call it a recipe that people were following. And obviously, it was really important on what are called intermittent nutritional fasting days. That was one of the most important things. So again, for some of the new people coming on, what we've been discussing are why diets are failing us, because they are. And I've been presenting the medical evidence, number one, on traditional diets, and you can make your decision. But one of the ones I think that's really telling was the New England Journal of Medicine. I got it right here, a 12-month study on one group lowering calories, one group doing time-restricted eating. The people that did calorie lowering lost 16 pounds in a year, and the time-restricted was 12.6 pounds in a year. But right in the study, they said both the time-restricted eating both time-restricted eating and caloric restriction led to the loss of lean muscle mass. That's every diet. That's what's going on, okay? And these people that talk about fasting for more than 24 hours, good luck, but you're burning through your lean muscle like crazy, despite what they're saying. It makes no logical sense scientifically. When you're lowering the quantity of food you're ingesting, you're also lowering nutrition by default. And we know that the food in this country, even if it's organic, and matter of fact, they did 200 studies, organic versus regular food, it was a little better nutritionally. But the main reason to eat it is because it's less polluted, okay? We're just in a whole different realm now. And what do? We keep chasing. It's like we're chasing smoke. We're chasing, like Don Quixote, chasing windmills. We keep coming up. I mean, it's really interesting. They come up with these new names for the same thing. I mean, again, can anybody name a diet out there that's not some... Yes. Oh my, Wolf, it's not my opinion. I mean, again, that's hard. And Wolf, maybe you missed this one. Let me also read to you about calorie counting. Why you shouldn't count calories. Again, Wolf, this is not my opinion, or for any of you. I want to share this knowledge with you. They said, truth is, calorie counting is a terrible approach for weight loss. While counting calories and restricting calories can help you lose weight in the short term, the approach has never been proven to keep weight off long term. They go on to say, what's even worse is 2/3 of people who try to count or restrict their calories will gain back more weight than they lost. So Wolf, absolutely, positively, we got to do something different, don't we? I mean, do we just continue doing what we're doing? Isn't that the definition of insanity? And what are we doing? We have more diets with different names with the same approach. It's just a code word, like time-restricted eating is nothing more than ending up lowering calories. And then we look at a big study in the Journal of the American Medical Association where they did an analysis and they said that in 3 months, people lost 2 to 3.5 pounds, and the majority of what they lost was their lean muscle mass, even with that little weight loss in 3 months. But we keep, I guess it's we want to believe. No, we do. We want to believe with complete lack of evidence, It's almost like 550 years ago when the smartest people in the world said, what? The world's flat. Look at all the data. Look at all the information. What are they seeing? The celebrities, the fitness trainers, the doctors, the dietitians, right? And it's not a matter of me being right, okay? I feel really strongly somebody needs to be the canary in the coal mine. If that turns to about me and us, because we've started a movement. The New Health Conversation, which is not just our website, it is, and you can see it up there. It's our movement, okay? And our only job is to give you an option. If we had to convince you or sell you, then we really are bad at what we're doing. That website has information, has before and afters, has medical proof that will stun you. Stun you. You've never seen anything like that. And it's free to go there. We're not tricking you. And for any new people, this is what we've been talking about in this podcast. Why diets are failing us? Because they are. It doesn't matter what the name is. I read a little bit earlier. This is a meta-analysis of 48 different studies, 7,200 people, where they looked at pretty much every diet out there in 12 months, from the least amount of weight to the most amount of weight, whether it's a keto, paleo, Mediterranean fasting, time-restricted eating, was about 10 ounces in a year. And the weight loss was about 16 pounds in a year. But again, about 40% of the weight loss was lean muscle mass. Well, when you lose lean muscle mass, your body's going to slow down your metabolism. You come off the diet, that's why you gain all the weight back. I just read to you why they said why you shouldn't count calories. Because the calorie counting is a terrible approach to weight loss. While counting calories and restricting calories can help you lose weight in the short term, the approach has never been proven to keep weight off long term. What's even worse, 2/3 of people who try to count or restrict calories gain back more than they lost. I lost 40 pounds 21 years ago. Kept it off for 21 years. Hello? But for 20 of those years, I was like everybody you're seeing today. I was giving you my opinion. I was showing you before and after. I was giving you anecdotes. But, you know, some of you are old enough to remember the commercial, for sort of a bad pun, but maybe, where's the beef? Well, here it is, finally. 7 peer-reviewed studies done in the obesity journal, in the nutrition journal, Frontiers in Nutrition, Frontiers in Physiology, in Nutrients, International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health, and Nature Communications, this most recent one that was just published on our gut health, on our microbiome. It blew everything away. Nature Communications is the #1 journal in the entire world. It's so exclusive to get published in there. Out of 100 studies, they look at 7 and they publish 1 or 2. You don't just like submit your work and you get it published. That's not how it works. And the more prestigious the journal, the more scrutiny and the more credibility what your study has. I don't want to disparage anybody. I really don't. I really think that they're trying to help you. But if they're helping you with the wrong information, what good is it? Yeah, well, that's a good theory there, Brew. But here's your problem. Because you don't even know that you are suffering from this syndrome right here, the TDOS syndrome. As healthy as you may think you are, you're storing chemicals in your visceral fat. There's a new term, by the way, if you're thin. It's called normal weight obesity, redefined as visceral obesity, meaning just because you're thin, well, here's the point. As good as you're feeling now, you could feel so much incredibly better if you were able to detox. There's nothing you're doing that's ever been proved medically that's removing chemicals from your body. The point is, every one of us have the TDOS syndrome. If you're breathing, drinking, eating, okay? I don't know if you all saw the article a couple weeks ago on Starbucks coffee. They're saying in each cup of Starbucks coffee, you have between 50 and 100,000 microplastics in every cup of coffee. What are any of you doing about that? Nothing, because you don't even know what's happening. That's why these studies, they're going to change the world, because not one of these 7, but in an 8th study that was unrelated to these 7, they did an analysis. See, in plastic, the thing that's so dangerous are called phthalates. They're what make the plastic pliable. It's how it can bend, okay? Well, high phthalates, they say, are responsible for a massive increase in estrogen in women and contributing to the massive increase in breast cancer in women. And in men, it really limits testosterone. Well, this 8th study proved that this protocol removed the phthalates from the body. We have that study as well. It's not part of these 7 because these 7 were more around like high blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, triglycerides, but they did prove that they were removing chemicals from the body. So, well, Gothic octaves, it's not the TDOS concept. It's a registered trademark, U.S. Patent Office as a medical condition. And the CDC, well, let me read an excerpt from the book. The U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, through the National Center for Health Statistics, has conducted a series of blood and urine tests on thousands of Americans, measuring and monitoring the absorption of chemical toxins and at what concentrations these occur in the body. Think of it as the ongoing Manhattan Project. That's how big of a deal it is now. The other thing, it wasn't until 2005 that Mount Sinai Medical School in New York City did the first test on a human being that we were storing chemicals inside of us. You may think that's a long time, but in the medical world, that's like a second. That's a blink of an eye. Because you got to understand, from the first study, number one, there have now been more than 1,000 studies saying that, well, we thought there were about 200 chemicals we were storing, or 287, I believe it was. We now know that everybody, including you, that is eating, not that that's bad what you're doing. I'm not, please don't hear me say that. What I'm saying is we got a new enemy up against us. And I read from this book what they were just validating, that these chemicals that we're storing have a name. They're called obesogens, and they're saying obesogens are altering the function of our genes and essentially reprogram us to gain weight. I mean, the thing is, there's so much going on now that we didn't even know before. Well, let me further clarify. I know that I think it was Wolf, you were questioning about the book, but let's here's the origin. Even the Endocrine Society, the largest organization of experts devoted to research on hormones and the clinical practice of endocrinology, recently reported that the rise in the incidence in obesity matches the rise in the use and distribution of industrial chemicals that may be playing a role in a generation of obesity, suggesting that EDCs, endocrine disrupting chemicals, may be linked to this epidemic. Obesogens are thought to act by hijacking the regulatory systems that control body weight, says Frederick von Saul, curator, professor of biological science at the University of Missouri. These are not opinions that I'm giving to you, ladies and gentlemen. They're not. So this medical syndrome, okay, TDOS, because what's happening is, because our food has become so nutritionally deficient, we're not in. See, here's the good news. Last night when you went to sleep, as long as you didn't eat too late, when you went to sleep, your body shut down your digestion, you automatically started detoxing. It's called autophagy. Happens every night. It's when the body gets rid of the dead cells, okay? So we know that it's possible, but with regular food, there's literally not enough fuel for those generators that create the detox, at least up to this point. It's until these new studies proved that it was possible. Again, they did blood, urine, stool, fat analysis, proving that this was removing those chemicals from our visceral fat. See, that's where we got it so warped. Everybody thinks, you hear the word diet, weight loss. This is not a diet. First and foremost, this is your own body's upping its not possibility, but its probability that it will remove the chemicals. Look, do you know we're all breathing in the fumes from the coal-fired power plants in China? The mercury, the cadmium from like 2 weeks ago. Every day, every breath you're taking. My God, you're drinking Starbucks coffee and getting up to 100,000 microplastics. They did something on a bottle of water about, 6 weeks ago, where that's between 100 and 300,000 microplastics in every bottle of water you're drinking. You got to understand, this is still so new. Because the first study was done in 2005, let's say, but also you have to understand, when Mount Sinai did the first studies, there weren't even tests to detect if we were storing more chemicals. Look, here are the numbers. You can look it up. We have 80,000 chemicals in commercial use in North America. 2% of those have ever been tested for what they do to us. Wait a minute. So, out of 80,000, that's 1,600. So that would mean what? About 7,400, something like that. No, 78. Yeah, about 7,800 or so would be, maybe I did the math wrong, but you get the point. What about the other, let's say, 70-some thousand chemicals? They've never been tested for what they do to us. Aren't we finding out every day about things like styrene? Aren't we things about, do you know that there are pesticides that we used like 25 or 30 years ago that are banned that's still in our soil? I mean, somebody has to at least say, should we look at something different than what we've been doing? So the big picture is the TDOS concept. Yeah, it really is. That's a starting point. They're saying it's the triggering event so even if you eat organic, and just look, the way we look on the outside has nothing to do with the way we look on the inside. That's why that term, normal weight obesity, defined as visceral obesity, big study done, I think it was about 8 or 9 years ago. You can look it up. It's called "Just Because You're Thin Doesn't Mean You're Healthy." Do you know how many have high blood pressure now? 50% of us supposedly are pre-diabetic. What? This is nuts. I mean, if you are eating healthy and you look thin, that's nothing wrong. That's great, but it's not enough. It is not enough because the picture you're seeing in the mirror doesn't reflect the mirror inside of us. And we can't ignore the fact that every disease is exploding. You know, defined studies show food is up to 90% less nutrient dense versus. Yeah, I don't think it's 90%. I think it's 30%. Yeah, you're right. But the point being that you're welcome. You can do whatever you want to do. There's plenty of influences that you can follow now. You don't have to listen to us. But I believe the one thing we're the proudest of, we're bringing you medical, peer-reviewed, human trial proof, not opinions. Why would you want to listen to an opinion? An opinion doesn't mean a thing. You know, and here's another study. I didn't read this one yet. This is in Nutrients about low carbohydrate diets. Wait till you hear this. Exposure to low carbohydrate diets is associated with reductions in muscle mass and an increased risk of osteoporosis in obese individuals. Let me read that again. Low carbohydrate diets are associated with reductions in muscle mass and increased osteoporosis risk in obese individuals. They go on to say, reduced muscle mass is an established risk factor for osteoporosis and has been associated with functional impairment in obese individuals. Well, we didn't know that before. You see, now what's happening, the medical world, they're now doing analysis they never did before. That's why these things are coming out. Like I said, the first study ever done on a human being if we were storing chemicals was only done in 2005. So that's 19 years ago. Do you see? You kind of see what's going on now? Let me see what else. I need more convincing about your comments to calorie conversion. Wolf, did you not hear what the head of obesity at Harvard Medical School? Did you not hear what she said? The idea of calories in, calories out when it comes to weight loss is not only antiquated, it's just wrong. Says, are you more of an expert than Fatima Stanford, a obesity expert at Harvard Medical School? She says, drop the calories notion. It's time to take a different approach. Yes. I mean, Wolf, what more evidence do you need? Look around America, where every diet out there is lowering calories and 80% is overweight and 50% are obese. Yes, we do need a win. You know, again, Wolf, do whatever you want. Hold on to your beliefs. Show me one shred of medical evidence that lowering calories is the long-term weight loss solution where you're not losing lean muscle. Doesn't exist medically. And I only deal in peer-reviewed human trial studies. I appreciate your opinion, but it doesn't mean anything in the medical world. It's complete and utter nonsense. You can't think if 80% of our people are overweight and 50% are obese, how in the world is this working? It's not. But I appreciate your comments, you know. But for the rest of you, the point is, aren't you sick and tired of just going on a diet and having your heart broken? Wolf, either go to the website or not. Okay, I have to help everybody else. I can't, you know, I appreciate your comments and you're entitled to your opinions, but again, unless you can show me peer-reviewed human trial studies, there's no point in having a discussion. It makes no sense. Okay, and I'm looking at, you know, every one of these, the Mediterranean diet, #1 diet 7 years in a row, based on lowering calories. They lose, in 8 months, they lost 10.2 pounds and 40% of their weight loss is lean muscle. I mean, how many more studies do we need to take a look at that have nothing to do with me? So again, back to everyone else, what we've been talking about. What? This is inactivity. How is that happening? Damn it. Inactivity. I don't get it.